McGregor, Middle East, Ronaldo. Is this guy's name? Christian Ronaldo, soccer player, handsome dude. Okay, you have to understand, because I'm trying to set the scene for you. And the scene, you've heard the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's very real in this moment. Conor McGregor comes over, looks like $1 million. You know, he's got the suit. And then Conor's got like these little movements he does. Conor's got like these little movements where he can like adjust, but he looks cool doing it. There's a message in that. These are all rehearsed. None of these are just done. There's a showman here. One of the kings of giving you a message with subtle movements is The Rock. The Rock, as good as he was on the stick, if you only heard that, like if that was taped to a CD, he would still be very good at it, but it wouldn't be the same. He had little move. I mean, for goodness sakes, the eyebrow was a movement. Conor has these movements. He comes over. He does like a Middle East, like a hello, like a pray and a nod to Christian Ronaldo, who does not acknowledge his existence. And then Conor sits down. And it's very interesting because there's a whole row of empty seats. Now, I admit that the seat that was assigned for Conor was right next to Ronaldo. I'm just saying there was 20 empty seats. He could have put a little room until the next guest came. Either way, sits down shoulder to shoulder and then begins leaning over possibly sport's very biggest star, which I like. I like that Conor did it. I thought it was a very cool alpha-style move. Ronaldo is meeting him back with an alpha-style move, not acknowledging that Conor exists. However, being fully aware that this man will kill me, so I better be on my best behavior. Like, the whole thing was just very interesting. Then there's another person. And I believe the other person, as I refer to them, was a member of the media to some degree. I think he might have taken my spot. In fact, I got asked to come to this thing. I couldn't go. I think that this guy might have had my spot, but not for nothing. Conor starts making his case. He wants this person, who I'm declared to be a member of the media, possibly the boxing media, to hear his story. And his story is simply about Manny Pacquiao. I want the Pacquiao fight. I was supposed to have the Pacquiao fight a while ago. And Conor did have Audie and Conor started a management company, and they did sign Pacquiao, and Pacquiao did do them dirty. It was very in line with the way boxers treat people in that industry, but it was very out of line with the way MMA people would allow it to happen. So when Pacquiao did it dirty, they actually took him to court, and Pacquiao lost, and it was like $8 million. It was a meaningful judgment against Pacquiao, and it was a slam dunk case. Pacquiao was completely in breach of this contract. Relevant that you know that, because Conor brings up and says, hey, I want to fight Pacquiao, and Pacquiao wants to fight me. The only problem we have is the weight class, and it's a problem on Pacquiao's behalf. Pacquiao feels the weight that I'm willing to fight him at is too heavy. Conor's saying, but look, I'm coming to his sport. I got to leave me grappling. I got to leave me kicks. I got to leave me elbows, and I got to leave me knees behind. So in exchange for me letting all these tools go, don't you think that it's right that he spot me a few pounds? Quite frankly, it's a perfectly logical argument. It's just a simple case that we've all now been revealed, right? I mean, what none of us thought was true, turns out it is true. It turns out a good mixed martial artist can beat the greatest boxers alive. That's no longer a question. Like Conor McGregor kicking Floyd's ass for 30 minutes. And I don't need to hear back from him. I know that Floyd kicked his ass right back, but it was extremely competitive. Watching Francis Ngannou kick Tyson Fury's ass for 30 minutes. And I understand, Fury kicked his ass right back. But what I'm saying is, yeah, all of a sudden the weight does matter. All of a sudden the apparatus of the ring versus the cage does matter. All of a sudden, whether it's cotton or horsehair getting put in those gloves, and whether those gloves are 16 ounces or 12 ounces, all of a sudden it really matters. The great advantage to the great boxer that we all believed would be true, turns out it's not. Turns out that's not all that complicated of a sport. Turns out it's not all that sweet, and there's nothing scientific about it, but we didn't know these things going in. So now you do understand where Pacquiao is going to defend himself. Like, he doesn't want to be the first one to go down. And okay, but this is only part of the messaging, guys, right? The other part of the messaging is Conor making his case. And Conor said, he's talking about MMA now, okay? He goes back and forth between boxing and MMA. He bounces back to MMA, and he says, for all I've done for them, they should roll the red carpet out for me. Nobody has been mistreated in the history of our sport, which, yes, is a Donald Trump quote. Turns out Conor watches Donald Trump and says, nobody in the history of our sport has been treated the way that I'm being treated. Now, I gotta tell you, and see, I'm a closet Conor fan. You know, that's one thing you gotta know about me. I'm a closet Mark. I like to know what he's doing. I find it interesting. I find forged beer and proper 12 whiskey interesting. I find it interesting that he opened a burger and fry joint. And I find it very interesting that he is now the biggest star in sports. See, make no mistake, Red Panty Night is real. Make no mistake about that. Boxing, possibly with Canelo, but with no exception aside from Canelo, has as big of a star as Conor. So whether it's in MMA or it's in boxing, you must understand there's a reason that he is sat side by side and shoulder to shoulder with the biggest star in all of sport, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, you've got to understand, it's real. The Conor effect is real. But like anything, it's going out. Cristiano Ronaldo's star, as bright as it is, it only goes one way, right? It only goes out once you reach the very top. That's basic biology. What goes up must come down. Anything red hot can only cool off. Like, we understand these things. So to see Conor fighting for his position and fighting for number one and fighting for that status and fighting for the ability to go out there and perform and to compete and to entertain all of you, I liked it. I thought it was a very humbling moment. I thought it was a very cool thing that Conor was pleading his case in two different directions. He's pleading it to the UFC and he's not happy about whatever is delaying his return. And over there, he is being very sincere when he tells you guys, anybody, any weight, anytime. He's serious about that. He understands that's to be a determined weight class at a determined date against specifically Michael Chandler. He understands that. But when he says anybody, that isn't his way of trying to shun Chandler. That's his way of making you right away. Whoever you can give me, whenever you can give it to me. I'll do Chandler, but I don't want to wait. If you got somebody that's even faster, I want to do it even faster. He's being sincere. And you know, there's always something that makes the greats great. But sometimes you miss it. And Conor being grounded and being hungry, I got to tell you, I thought it was encouraging. It's not going to affect the physicality. It's not going to affect the outcome or the performance. But it does speak to how he became a two-division simultaneous champion. It does speak to that. You know, one of the things I find most interesting about Conor McGregor, he went out and copyrighted. He actually trademarked the term champ. Are you guys aware of that? Champ is his. Now, the only person that's going to tell you that you need a patent or a trademark is an attorney that does patents and trademarks. They're basically not worth the paper that they're written on. I just find it interesting that he coined the term champ when he himself is a champ. He forgot one of them. Conor McGregor had so much success, he forgot one of his I watched him win the interim championship. I was there live. I watched him get sang to the ring by Sinead O'Connor. I watched some bumpkin with a cowboy hat sing Chad Mendes to the ring. I watched the entire thing. He was the 45-pound champion. He was the 55-pound champion. He was the interim champion. He won 3 of them. He only copyrighted 2 of them. It's a very interesting thing, and it speaks to the hunger of Conor McGregor. And I do not know of anybody that has quite been treated the way that Conor has been treated. And it's to the point that the brass of the UFC even agrees when they part ways and did a very public breakup with USADA, which the company was forced to do because USADA decided to publicly try to shame them first. Hunter Campbell and Jeff Novitzky specifically brought up Conor McGregor and the innuendo that USADA was doing to Conor McGregor as one of the reasons that they didn't want to be in business with them anymore. So there is a leg for Conor to stand on here. I would have to remind Conor of one thing, and I have to remind all of you of one thing, because Conor makes a legitimate point. Conor has got a big miss with Pacquiao. That's not interesting. Now, whatever Conor does is going to be more interesting than things that don't involve Conor. That's also true. But Conor versus Pacquiao isn't interesting. Conor versus Floyd was a bust. And I realize anywhere you read something different. There's a reason that while Conor and Floyd were begging to rematch, there was no promoter willing to write that check again. That was a very bad night of business. That's the truth. It is something to see a big star, a current, Red Panda still real, a big star going after a guy that was really good and never a star, and you got to go back 12 years just to find one of those statements to be true. The big thing that you must remember, and that Conor himself might need reminded of, he has to wait 6 months. When I go back to the press conference with Nowitzki and Hunter Campbell, addressing USADA's claims, Hunter was very clear to say, we're not going to fight USADA on the rule. We're not going to test the rule. We know the language they're speaking of. And while there could be something to test there, we're not. We're going to acquiesce. And whether it's with you or somebody else, Conor will be in the pool 6 months. Now, I don't have that in front of me, guys. I'm going off the top of my head. I do know that was after Halloween, and I do know it was somewhere closer to Thanksgiving. So let's just say that Conor's been in the pool 45 days. That's probably generous, but probably pretty close. He still has to wait 6 months. So in a best case scenario, you're talking about May, and much more likely June at the earliest. And before Conor gets frustrated and thinks I don't have a date announced, nobody that's fighting in May and or June has been informed yet. Nobody has a date. No bout agreements are signed for that far out. The furthest, in fact, of any bout agreement signed by anybody in the organization is for UFC 300, which, just to remind you, is in April. So, what might feel as though a mistreatment is actually very in line with the way everybody else is being treated.